Hello and welcome to another Best Junglers episode, this one for patch 14.2. And just as we were getting used to the grubs, Riot have dropped another preseason level patch right on our faces, changing the rune shards that we use, adjusting some items, and obviously a whole bunch of changes, including to one really flaming hot guy who probably should turn blue with how scorching his win rate is. And so we will go over the best junglers overall, including specifically for low MMR and high MMR, but obviously applying these champions to your jungling is a different issue, and for that, you absolutely must head over to Virkayu.gg. I have a free jungle improvement resource as well as a dedicated program where we have jungle video courses, jungle coaching VOD libraries, weekly free video content seen nowhere else, as well as Q&As and patch note rundowns, as well as a private jungle Discord. And if there's one thing I'm good at, it's making junglers reach their goals, as we saw with the record number of people hitting them at the end of Season 13. If you want to climb faster than anyone you know, jungle div every game you play, click the link below or head to Virkayu.gg. So we're going to start off with the S tier page, and yes, Brand is at the top. They changed his passive to tick a lot more frequently than it used to, and even though in theory that's the same damage, it's damage that ticks more often, which means in the periods where you're not being ticked by damage, you can heal, you can survive, you can be eaten by Tom Kench. But when that happens more frequently and you can't actually react to it, you might die a little bit more. The thing about that is though, it might not have worked the way we thought, and instead of actually having that damage every second, it now is just the same damage every 0.25 seconds. Such was the confusion that his win rate shot up to like 57%. They have since hotfixed him, removing some of the damage to monsters he has, removing the max HP per stack, kind of allowing us to see a little bit about how that math works overall. He is definitely a bit more nerfed over the release, so the data is inflated, but at the moment we're going to keep him here until such time as we fully understand exactly what the hell this champion's doing, but he clears too fast. He's got amazing atomization, he has a lot of HP now, so he's harder to kill, and even if you're having a terrible game, all it takes is a few stuns, a few AoE hits with your E and your R, and you're looking at having the most damage in the game. Map control, sequence, gank, abuse the fact that he's one of the few mages that actually enjoys the reversion of the atomization, and at the moment he's looking like one of the best junglers in the game, although he might not be the top spot once the data normalizes and they maybe adjust him again a little bit. And obviously next up we're going to have Graves, because nothing has changed. Yeah, his win rate isn't as sexy as some of the other champions on this list or in the data sites, but when you look at the play rate, you look at what good Graves players are doing, I look at my private Discord where I see Graves mains climbing very easily. You've got a champion that is difficult to master, not that difficult to pick up, adheres to whatever jungle strategy you would prefer to follow, whether it's a bit more invadey, a bit more farmy, counter jungly, high pressure, a bit more ganking. And yeah, there are different things you can go, like hey, maybe you like the Cyclosaur, but at the end of the day, the Ghostblade collector variation is still true. It still does not lie, it's still a great baseline, and even though there's a lot of cool atomization variation later on in his build, your 2-item spike allows you complete domination. Next up we have Lilia, who has always been broken for basically a very long time, but really under the radar. Now with the Leandries and a Riftmaker and you combining those things, you can do yourself a bit of a Zhonya's, a bit of a Rylai's afterwards if you like. She has so much HP, so much damage over time, so much healing with her passive. They really need to think about how to tune her, because the fusion of these items with how this champion is currently, it's insanely obnoxious, because while she's an AFK farmer, in your mind, she's also an absolutely amazing skirmisher with a dominating level 6, and also is absolutely dominating at scaling, which is, just existing and then being strong later on. So ban or pick Lilia, and if you play Lilia, maybe just ban a Rengar and enjoy yourself. Next up we have Xin Zhao, and yes, Rengar is OP, you see him here, but I put him above Rengar because Rengar is much more difficult to pilot, whereas Xin Zhao, he's really made for those people who caused us to have to think differently about Tide Pods, you know what I mean? He's just too simple to execute, you don't have to think. You know how most junglers and players have to think about their matchups and, can I gank this, can I counter gank this, can I fight this? He doesn't have those issues, he just goes, full throttle all the way. High gap close, good sustain, attack speed passive knockups, challenges people and knocks the rest away. Essentially, as you would have seen from the video I made last week, he is a great total package for that Rek'Sai crowd, because she's not doing so hard at the moment, she's okay, but he's really replaced that, look, you want to gank, you want to snowball, you want to win, you want grubs, you want dragons, and that's it. This is your guy. Next up though, we have Rengar, who, again, as I said in the last video, is absolutely abusing and eviscerating anybody in this game with the new itemization. Every other champion's like, I like this one item, I like this other item too. Rengar's like, you know what? I like all of them. Hubris, Profane Hydra, Opportunity, I don't care, I'm building all of them. And because the bonus damage on Profane Hydra is below 50%, which is quite high actually, once he jumps in, does the damage and presses that button, everybody dies. Literally just everybody dies. The thing is though, while his win rate and everything is good, it's still really for the mains and the good players. Sure, a casual guy can pick him up and pop off, but it's really not that easy. And if you are playing against a first-time Rengar and you lose to him getting 20 kills, I'd question myself rather than the Rengar pick, you know what I mean? One tricks and mains, destroying everybody. Free elo for them. Good for them, they put in the time, they know how to master the champion. For the rest of the casual crowd playing Rengar, you guys can still abuse them before they become too hot online. However, if you want yourself some free LP, go and chuck in some games, abuse the new items, and you yourself can also climb for free. Following Rengar, we have Nocturne, and I thought in my private patch note rundown that, you know, this Noon Quiver removal from Hexplate, that's meaningful because while Half-Bound Axe is really good, you don't get that bonus damage that allows you to clear it just a little bit faster. And as you all know, I'm very much a supporter of these items that allow an invest into farming quicker. Because if you need to rotate to something, you can finish the camp off. If you need to do a quadrant before dragon and get there in time, it allows you to do that. The ramp up time for farming when you get this item early just gives you a lot more econ, prevents counter jungling. It's just such a good thing because you can also skirmish with it. Now obviously they have nerfed the Hexplate by changing that and reducing the amp on the ultimate activation, but Nocturne doesn't care. It's still his best rush item overall. You can still do the Eclipse, you can maybe do a Profane Hydra, but Hexplate, the nerf is a little bit impactful, but it's not that strong. It still just absolutely synergizes with him when it comes to the ultimate haste as well as, you know, general amping up when he presses that button. There are some other schools of thought that are saying, okay, well now they've nerfed this, maybe we go back to Stridebreaker, maybe we rush something else, but basically I'm sitting back and I'm just going to watch the numbers. We have item variation on Nocturne, the champion is still too strong, too cringe sometimes, but at the same time, if you play him, nothing is going to change based upon the changes in this patch. Bel'Veth, on the other hand, is enjoying herself a pretty understated season. Still very strong. A lot of psychopath invades doing absolutely nothing but coin flipping, and hopefully they can snowball. But good junglers that know how to play Bel'Veth well aren't always doing that. They have good map impact. They don't even need to gank and have high KP and high damage to win games. You give him some grubs, you give him a herald, you give him a few counter jungling moments, 1 or 2 resets, and they can end the game in the mid game between 15 and 20 just through these mechanisms. However, obviously most Bel'Veths are hyper aggressive and they tend to, you know, overreach a lot. But once she starts snowballing, once she gets a few freebies and you don't shut her down, it's a very difficult champion. She's got Avoid Fishies, she got Grub Mites, she got Herald Mites, and then you add in whatever disease Baron gives her and all of a sudden you have no nexus. It's a fast pushing, highly snowballing champion, still absolutely strong. And yes, you are wondering, but what about the cost reduction and the buff to Stridebreaker? Hey, she's stronger for that. There's no downside. And finally, we have Kha'Zix, because he is my most contentious S tier pick in a while. He's definitely an A2 jungler by my metrics and how I define it in this video, but I think when you have a good Kha'Zix, and I've studied and seen a lot of good Kha'Zixes now, they are really popping off in the season. They love the heightened skirmishing, the heightened out of position supports and laners looking for grubs. Yes, he struggles a bit more on the grubs, but it doesn't really matter because if you understand the map and pressure points, he's still killing everything. And when he does get that lead, he's in your jungle with so much, I don't know, like a snake. He just slides on in there and he kills you because the map is now open on the blue side. So if you are someone that can be killed by Kha'Zix one-on-one, and there's a fed Kha'Zix with 2-3 kills even, be wary. The guy will start to snowball if they're good. He's an S tier pick on capable players. He's an A tier or even B tier pick with bad players, so do keep that in mind. And as we go over to the A tier page, you're saying, well, isn't that a good reason to put Yi, Evelynn, Briar on the S tier page because of those things about Kha'Zix? In theory, you're correct, but at the same time, because they're easier, there's typically more room for you to counter them, and Master Yi is no exception. Yes, he can have 1000 tenacity at this point. Yes, his builds are an abomination. Yes, the champion is getting away with what he shouldn't, but at the same time, I don't think anybody's thinking about picking Yi over anything else on the other page when it comes to skillful play to get to whatever peak you're choosing, whether it's Diamond or Master or just getting to Gold. He still needs a bit of time to get his itemization to come online. I covered an obnoxiously disgusting build with the Titanic Hydra on my gameplay channel, so have a look on that if you want more thoughts about this champion. And next up we have Evelynn, and yes, the Storm Surge nerfs will have affected her. They will have affected Ekka and all these other champions. Good, it was too strong, it was OP. However, Evelynn has been OP for what feels like years at this point, and she's still basically S tier capable. The only reason I don't put her there is because when you're playing her, it's a little bit more difficult to execute than say a Lilia from the AP threshold, and Rengar will just kill you. A good Xin Shao also knows how to apply a lot of pressure to the Evelynn so she never comes online, and will end the game before she gets those free picks that allows her to catch up. So it's more of a matchup thing than necessarily champion weakness. But other than that, the Storm Surge, the builds, everything's still very good. Smooth, easy sailing for Evelynn players. Now with Briar, they're deciding, look, we want you to be a bit more of a fighter, less of an assassin. Everybody agrees, but they gave her ridiculous compensation buffs to her Q. Honestly, I don't understand why it now needs magic penetration, or an AP ratio for that matter, but I like the idea of adding more bonus HP thresholds to her passive, to a W, and it seems that this particular stage in the data and what we're seeing on the games and the VOD reviews, that the lethality and the fighter builds are now a lot more close overall. However, it's still a little bit too strong, I think, and a lot of people are struggling to really execute both of these things when it's necessary. Kind of like a Kane problem, yes? Don't be surprised if you see a few more fighter adjustments with HP scaling in her kit to come, but overall, still absolutely beautiful for those of you who just want to play jungle on rails without thinking. You know what? Yeah, I'm putting Ivor in here. His win rate's too good, despite the fact that grubs are another thing he can do, because his 4 clear allows him to have so much win condition over the lanes that matter. Mid lane has a lot of agency at the moment. I know they don't want to talk about it, but when you understand jungle tracking as a mid laner and how to actually manage your waves, the power you have to play around your jungler for dragons, for grubs, for roams is absolutely insane. And so Ivern really enables whichever win con, whether it's a mid lane top or ADC, that you can actually play around. And while enemy junglers are worrying so much about grubs and really filling their minds with all these different distractions, he is centered, he knows what he needs to do, and when he's fed, obviously the supportive nature and damage he provides is second to none. Following this, we have Kane. Yes, they have removed, my friends, the area interaction. Rest in peace area itemization technology. But, you know, we go back to Dark Harvest and we don't really care. Blue Kane, still really strong because he's Blue Kane. Rost, always good, always. And now you got things like Profane Hydra, and you got Eclipse, and you got other lethality that Rost can also do because the damage, despite multiple nerfs in history, is still obscene. And now he has access to a lot of lifesteal items. I think Rost and Blue Kane, they're enjoying themselves as much as Zac is enjoying himself. Yeah, I value this champion quite highly, actually. Not only in jungle, but also in top lane. And no doubt support Zac players will say, what about me? And I'm like, yeah, you're good as well. What's funny is Hollow Radiance is extremely good on him, yet the data still doesn't represent that because of the Sunfire Rush, but it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of tank item variation. There's the ability to slap in the Leandries, which I hope a lot of you are doing. And basically, Zac is probably the best solo queue tank at the moment. And next up we have Viego, I think performing admirably. He's not as strong as I thought he necessarily would be at the beginning of the last patch. I do think he is very powerful. I do think he is overshadowed a lot by overtuned champions or champions abusing overtuned items or just some good relationship between the meta of what we need to do and all of those other things. But at the same time, what does that mean for him? He's still the master of none, but good at everything. He provides anything that a jungler needs to actually carry in Season 14. He's got solid itemization. Yeah, he doesn't get to abuse all the new items like other champions in this video, but who really cares when you can just control and win games? Exactly. And following this, honestly, there's a big drop-off. I've put Kindred because I trust Kindred, and I understand that people still know that the Krakensight Trinity Force, maybe a Terminus build, these are all very good things for Kindred, but at the same time, there's a lot of big differentials between the win rates and the play rates at this stage in the jungle hierarchy. You could easily slap any other kind of champion too. You could say maybe Lee Sin, but I don't really value him that highly for general population at the moment. I think he's fine. You could put him here for sure, but I think Kindred probably does a better job at actually accomplishing jungle goals in Season 14 on average, which of course is stacking your marks, high pressure, getting grubs. And what's anyone doing to a snowballing Kindred with 10 marks and all the grubs again? Nothing. Following that, we now go to the low MMR page, and Lilia, the queen of everything that I said before, makes her, you know, OP and low elo. Nocturne's still great, Briar's still great. Brand will always be good here, easy to play mage. Master Yi's crying a little bit at those other champions, but still, if you ban Ramus, you'll be fine. And then, Trundle and Jax, huge split pushing pressure. Yes, they said we are nerfing Jax's Counter-Strike max HP damage. Okay, and then we're gonna amp up the hell out of what he can do to turrets. So now we can bonk turrets, you know, even more despite doing less damage to you. Which is great for low elo because no one knows how to deal with split pushes. So you take your Trundle, you take your Jax, and you go ahead, and if a game is bad and you can't do anything about it, what do? You split push. You get your grubs, focus the Herald, don't die for them, but, you know, try and focus them as a point of theory, and then use that for macro later on. Get a good flanker for the team fight, and GG. And as we go to the high elo page, you'll notice something very interesting. Obviously, Rengar, Graves, yes, Lee Sin, Brand, Lilia, Xin Zhao, Evelynn, and I'm putting in the Jax here as well. How the hell is Jax great in low elo, great in high elo, but not in the main portion of this video? Well, that's because, my friends, for some reason, when no one knows what the hell they're doing, Jax is great because you can just split push. No one can stop you. And in high elo, when you know how to play Jax and people know how to play around him, he's OP because guess what? You can still use those macros to get the grubs and finish the games. But in general population, people are good enough to kind of stop the Jax. The Jax isn't good enough to execute what he needs to do to win. And it's like this weird middle ground of ignorance and arrogance that stops them from succeeding. Whereas in high elo, when you know what you're doing with this kind of champion, and in low elo, when you don't know what you're doing with this kind of champion, everyone gets rewarded. It's like the bell curve of lamppost usability. Now, no, I'm not saying he's one of the best 8 high elo junglers to play. I'm saying this is one of the great ones you can actually use when you're trying to get away from all the regular stuff that you always are forced to play in high elo. Obviously, Evelynns and Kanes and Belveths are all usable here. The Viegos and Kindreds, yes. But the Jax is showing some really good win rate data this patch with that Trinity Force Titanic Hydra build. And that's even better with the Titanic Hydra into Sundered Sky. So what you're looking at overall on this page is the Lee Sins, the Jaxes that are not great for general population, but definitely thriving in this higher MMR range. And obviously the high skill capped regular champions that you see, know and hate, maybe you love, popping off, as well as all the regular ones that are not listed here. And there are your best junglers for 14.2. Don't forget, we have all of the best tutorials on this channel to learn how to jungle in Season 14, including the one on your screen now to become a jungle god.